Ladies and gentlemen, we have Mr. Onyango Olo, who has been visiting us here in Stockholm. We have just had a fantastic meeting with the Kenyans, and Olo has accepted to do an interview for the Kenya Stockholm blog. Ndugu Olo, karibu.
Asante, nashukuru.
Now, you have been in Sweden for quite a short time from Germany. Could you just give a summary of your mission in Europe?
Well, I didn't have a mission as such. I was invited. This is the second time I've been to Europe within the last 3 or 4 weeks. I went to Italy for the Terra Futura Summit, which took place in Firenze, also known as Florence in Italy. And then I went to South Africa, where I participated in the African Renaissance and Intellectual Research Summit. Then I was invited to go to Bonn in Germany to be part of Europe-Africa dialogue on civil society and the future of development in Africa, where we had, apart from the Kenyans, there are people from Niger, there are people from Chad, there are people from Uganda, there are people from the Sudan and other African countries. And while I was there, this was not part of the official agenda. We threw in the Kenyan. So I know there's a large community of Kenyans in Stockholm. I have friends and comrades who live in Norway. So I decided to reroute my journey back by stopping over in Norway. And my principal community event I thought should be happening in Stockholm, because it's got a large concentration of Kenyans in Scandinavia.
Now, whenever a Kenyan comes directly from home, for Kenyans abroad, Kenyans in Sweden included, the issues of interest are normally the situation on the ground. Now, at the moment, there is this thing called the Mungiki menace. What is your take on the current standing with the Mungiki?
Well, I think that first of all, the media depictions and the government reaction has been simplistic and reductionist, because it's not one of those cowboy and Indian type of simplifications and distortions. There are issues of crimes being committed, murders being committed, beheadings, violence, extortion. Those are criminal acts which should be dealt with. We have existing laws which deal with crime. There's also the issues which are brought up by the Mungiki phenomenon, the fact that there exists this ethno-religious, quasi-political grouping known as Mungiki. Some people see it as a hydra-headed monster or formation which has political aspects, which has ethnic aspects, which has very grisly criminal tendencies. And the government has been going at it with a hammer. I have put my neck on the line by saying, let's try dialogue, let's try and sit down with Mungiki. And of course, by saying that, it's a suburban suggestion. It is loaded, because in one sense, there are credible reports that Mungiki has allies, if not members, right within the government of President Kibaki. And this is something which has to still be verified further. What we are seeing is that under the guise of clamping down on Mungiki, atrocities are being committed, massacres are happening, and sometimes the targeting has been tribal profiling, in my opinion. Some people have been arrested and tortured and railroaded simply because they happen to have names like Mwangi, Kunuthi, and Njoroge. In other words, if you're a Kikuyu youth, you are a dangerous species at the moment in Kenya in the fight against Mungiki. And yet we do know that the leaders of Mungiki, some of the ones who have come out as leaders of Mungiki, some of them are walking around. What I'm suggesting is that we need to make sure that Kenya does not breed something which will morph into something like what happened in Sierra Leone, the Revolutionary United Front, which had a lot of political rhetorics, but we know about the cutting people's limbs, we know about the rapes, we know about the abduction of children and conscripting into war. So what I'm saying is that we have to have a social justice approach, we have to have a historical approach, we have to ask ourselves, why is it that this group called Mungiki has got so many members in the country?
Now, do you think the government has the machinery to put an end to Mungiki, or do you think that there is laxity in the situation?
I think, first of all, yes and no. Yes, in the sense that if you don't see it as something where you are just going to train as many guns and purchase as many bullets, the capacity is there. Some of us come from a conflict transformation framework in which all the parties to a conflict must be involved in transforming that conflict from a violent conflict to something which looks at the root causes, which looks at, are there any issues to do with justice? Are there any issues to do with abuse of rights? Are there, how do we move the situation? How do we turn the situation around? Now, the problem with the Kenyan government is has a colonial mindset rooted in the old pacification credo, that if there's a problem, you take your crack troops and they pacify, which usually means burning and looting, rape and murder. It has never worked, will never work, and some of us are saying it in 2007, in June, that try another approach. Yes.
Now, from the Mungiki thing, we move on to the coming elections in Kenya.
Yes.
Now, at the moment, there are a lot of political parties competing for power, although NARC Kenya and ODM are the major contenders. How do you see the whole electioneering and, political parties that are, in the process, and how do you really think that they will be NARC, ODM, or whatever will be in a position to transform that country?
I think that for me, most of the political work I do it between elections, not those feverish moments where everybody's gathering who's going to be the next president. I think that what Kenyans have been fighting for since 1963 is to complete those historical tasks of our forefathers and foremothers, the Mekatilelis and the Dedan Kimathis, living in a free country, living in a country where resources are equally distributed, equality between men and women, youth empowerment, environmental protection, all those things. Now, you don't see those issues cramming the political agendas of any of those formations, whether it is ODM, whether it is NARC Kenya, and we are hoping there is another way of looking at it, to try. Kenyan progressives, Kenyan patriots should try and harness what we see at the ground, the anger of the youth, the frustration of the women, the sense of despair from pastoralists, the sense of being second-class citizen, which more and more Muslims feel, and try and say, can we make this into election year? Can this year's election be an issue-based election? The World Social Forum happened in Kenya this year. There are many issues from the African agenda, from the Kenyan agenda, from the global agenda, which were discussed in Nairobi. Are we able to infuse the electoral campaign? Are we able to hold all these candidates, civic and parliamentary and presidential candidates, to account? What kind of Kenya are they promising, or are they pledging to the people? Who are they going to be working with? For me, that is a much more germane question than trying to decipher who's going to be sleeping in State House in January 2008.
If you are to pass judgment on the Kibaki government, what is your evaluation?
Well, what I'll do, we don't have time, I'll refer people to my writings, which are on Jukwaa, on the Kenya Democracy Project. We have been critiquing the Kibaki government since it came to power. So people should go to mashala.com, they should go to Jukwaa, they should look, they should search for those things. My own assessment is that the government, even by the year 2003, before even the 6 months, had proved that it had sold out the people, it had betrayed the trust, it did not deliver the constitution, nor the jobs, nor those heady promises which so many millions of Kenyans believed in.